Coming up next on Salina Media Connection, Paul Shipp, a managing attorney for Kansas Legal Services, will explain how to choose a power of attorney and the responsibilities the role requires. Shipp provided the presentation Tuesday, September 17, 2019, at Tony's Pizza Event Center during the 2019 Sunflower Fair, organized by the North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging. The presentation is entitled How to Avoid Transforming into a Wicked Witch, How to Successfully Be a Respectful and Responsible Power of Attorney, Legal Protections for Elders, People Living with Disabilities, and Caregivers. The presentation is about an hour long.
Now is it working?
No,
Turn it on.
she did something. Up at the top, she did something.
RF mute.
Good morning. And welcome to a long title that means how to be a good power of attorney. So Paul Shipp is a managing attorney with Kansas Legal Services. It's a wonderful agency that provides free services to elder persons and persons with disabilities. You can read all about him here. He has lots of experience, 18 years. He ought to have it down pretty well. I've heard a lot of good things about him and from him before. So without any further delay, you can read more on page 13 after the presentation. I give you Paul Shipp. Please welcome him.
All right, and is this working or not in the back? Just to do the play on the theme is we're going to be off to see the wizard, and we're going to talk about powers of attorney, and when you're named as that individual, the types of things that you should be doing or thinking about when you're functioning in that role. I do work for Kansas Legal Services, and just to tell you a little bit about who we are, Kansas Legal Services is a statewide law firm. We serve every county in the state. What that means is we have an office somewhere in the state that's going to serve every county in that area. We do not have an office in every county because.
A little louder, please, Paul.
And so is the mic on back there?
Yes.
It is on? All right, and I'll just talk louder. But if you need help from Kansas Legal Services, call our 800 number and make application. You'll find it on some of the materials in the back. The types of legal problems that we handle vary. What I normally tell folks is at Legal Services, we help folks who cannot otherwise afford a lawyer, and we handle civil legal problems. Things we do not do. We do not handle criminal cases. We do not do personal injury cases. And if you're a gazillionaire and need a complicated trust, we're not qualified. Our clients don't have a lot of money. So we do things like you got denied food stamps, you got denied public housing, you got denied Medicaid, your landlord's trying to evict you. You cannot afford to make the payments on your home and you need help with the mortgage foreclosure. We help individuals who lost their job with chronic unemployment. Maybe they need to get Social Security. Maybe they need disability. If you're over 60 and you don't have $300, $500, $1,000, $3,000 to go pay some fancy lawyer a lot of money to do your will, your living will, your powers of attorney, and those types of things, we do it for free. If you're an elderly person and you have general legal questions and you just want to, ask some questions, call our hotline. This is not an abuse hotline. It's a information hotline where you can call and get information and have people answer your questions. We don't generally do legal documents on that hotline, but if you need that sort of thing done, then they can refer you and route you to an office that we have. Oftentimes when folks are named as the power of attorney, sometimes I refer to it as the frog in the boiling pot. Sometimes they don't even realize that they transform into this monster that they really didn't want to be. And to play off the theme, when the caregiver becomes the power of attorney, what are the things that you need to do and to keep in mind to make sure that you're keeping yourself in check? And I thought it would be fun to put some clips from The Wizard of Oz in the presentation. So we're going to start off with one to get us started. And I'm going to lay the mic by the speaker.
Kansas. Are you a good witch or a bad witch? For me? I'm not a witch at all. I'm Dorothy Gale from Kansas. Oh, but is that the witch? Oh, Toto? Toto's my dog. Well, I'm a little mother. The Munchkins call me because a new witch has just dropped a house on the Wicked Witch of the East. And there's the house. And here you are. And that's all that's left of the Wicked Witch of the East. And so what the Munchkins want to know is, are you a good witch or a bad witch? Oh, but I've already told you, I'm not a witch at all. Witches are old and ugly. What was that? The Munchkins. They're laughing because I am a witch. I'm Linda, the witch of the North. You are? Oh, I beg your pardon, but I've never heard of a beautiful witch before. Only bad witches are ugly. The Munchkins are happy because you have freed them from the Wicked Witch of the East. Oh, but if you please, what are Munchkins? The little people who live in this land. It's Munchkin land, and you are their national heroine, my dear. It's all right. You may all come out and thank her.
Okay. All right. So we are all in Kansas, and we want to make sure that we focus on what our role is and our goals are as an individual who's been named as a power of attorney for someone who's given you the responsibility to do things for them when they cannot do them themselves. And we're going to talk about what that means. In today's discussion, we're going to focus on, first, what is a power of attorney? What powers are delegated? We'll talk about different types of powers of attorney. We will talk about why you should have been chosen as the power of attorney and why it's important for you to keep that in mind. And we'll talk a little bit about how a power of attorney can sometimes be abused. And then we'll discuss the issue of the potential revocation of this power that you might be given. And then if we have time, we might discuss stories and share experiences. The most important thing that you need to understand as a power of attorney, when someone is giving you that power, they're giving you the authority to act on their behalf when they're not able to do things for themselves. And so, and the individual that's giving you that power, that individual is known as the principal. They're the giver or the maker. They're the ones that are going to sign that legal document and say to you, the caregiver, I'm trusting you to make choices for me when I am out of it. Sometimes the individual that is the power of attorney, the legal term of art is the attorney in fact. You don't actually become a lawyer. You don't have to be a lawyer. Do not have to be a lawyer to be a power of attorney. This is just a term of art. In healthcare, sometimes we call them the healthcare agent. In financial, we often use the term power of attorney a lot, but you can also be referred to as healthcare power of attorney. But power of attorney, attorney in fact, agent, healthcare agent, POA, all of those terms are synonymous. They're often called durable because they are useful when you are incapacitated. Okay? There are lots of different types of powers of attorney that are out there. A power of attorney can be very limited for a very specific period of time. A power of attorney can be for a specific transaction, like for one thing, like I'm giving you the power and authority to sign legal documents that have to deal with, say, buying a car. If you've ever purchased a vehicle, there's the power of attorney that's in the documents when you purchase the vehicle, so that there's some problem with the title or the registration. The dealership you're giving them the power to fix it for you and sign your name for you because something got screwed up because they don't want to have you come back in. Has anyone ever noticed that when they buy a car? Probably not. Next time you do it, you're like, oh, that's what that is. It's like, because it says in there it's for that limited purpose. And usually when we get older, we focus on two powers of attorney, and those are listed down there at the bottom. We have healthcare power of attorney and financial power of attorney, because when we're out of it, we need help with those two items, usually, because making sure that someone is sticking up for you and making sure you get certain types of help when you're out of it, or that you don't get certain types of help when you're out of it, because some folks don't want some things done and some people do want some things done. And that's for the for the healthcare power of attorney. And then for the financial one might be when you're dealing with the bank. or the debt collector, or the credit card company, or the cable company, or any other financial institution out there, whether it's the insurance company or the investment company, so that when someone needs to make some changes or discuss things with them, you're giving someone else the responsibility. You should know that downstairs we have a booth. It's over in the far, I guess that would be southeast corner of the building, if I've got my north southeast correct. I'm not sure if I do, but it's down past the vehicles. We have a booth down there. If you want to do a living will today, or a power of attorney today for healthcare, or even a power of attorney for financial decisions, if you know the name of the individual that you want to name and you're willing to give us your name, address, and phone number, or at least a year of your birth, we would appreciate additional information if you'll share it with us. But you can walk out of the building today with all of those legal documents in hand if you don't have them. And it's free. It doesn't cost anything. And so not only are we going to talk about this issue today, but if you have someone that you are a caregiver for, or if you do not have it yourself, there's no reason why. I just realized I don't have the microphone on in front of me. Maybe you can hear me better now. You can go downstairs and you can do that. And so I don't know if is that helping, because I can't tell if it's really on in the back. Can you hear me better back there? Good. Okay. And so I kind of like this little meme/joke cartoon, but sometimes when we get older, we're thinking about who to name as a power of attorney. It can get a little bit awkward because we're not sure about sharing our information with our kids, because we get a little bit worried that someone's going to take advantage of us. And I think this cartoon kind of pokes fun at that. When the kid's looking for a raise in his allowance and the kid says, "No, Dad, I really want your power of attorney, because then I can just help myself do whatever I want," right? And so what's wrong with that?
A lot.
It's a lot. Right. And so as a power of attorney, no matter whether it's for financial or healthcare, you need to keep in mind that that's not what this is about. This is not about control and taking advantage of someone. This is not an opportunity to take advantage of the person that you have been given the responsibility of caring for. Earlier I was having a conversation, and you may be in the room, I don't remember, but a lot of times folks will ask, well, who do I pick? And the answer that I always give to the individual that asks me that question is, I don't know. Because that's a very personal question. Why would someone choose one particular person to be a power of attorney over another? Does anyone have any thoughts? Does anyone want to share? Does anyone want to say what they considered when they were picking, or what they're thinking about now? I threw some ideas on the board, and some of them are really stupid. Like, can anyone see some up there that don't make any sense? Which ones don't make any sense? You're the prettiest? I mean, I've heard that before. I'm not joking. It's true. This one's the oldest. Does it matter how old they are, necessarily? No. Why doesn't it matter how old they are? I mean, you don't want to pick your grandkid who's 3 years old, right? Because they have no responsibility. But does it really matter how old your power of attorney is? No, it shouldn't. I mean, maybe the older person is wiser, but maybe the younger person is wiser. I don't know. Okay. What are good reasons to pick a power of attorney?
Trust.
You trust them, right? I'm going to try to pull in the Wizard of Oz theme. It was really hard, but maybe you'll find it in a minute. But what are some other good reasons that you might consider? Some of those up there may be not relevant in some situations, but in other situations they might. Keep in mind, when the person naming the power of attorney is naming an individual, they do not have to name the same person to be the healthcare one as the financial one. And so what considerations might you take into account, if you've got more than one option available?
They follow your wishes.
Will they follow your wishes, right? You trust them, right? Accessibility, are they available? Maybe this kid, I'm going to pick on myself, is the smart one, they're a lawyer, they are good with numbers, they're great with money, but you can never get them on the phone. Like, you're the last priority on their list, right? You can never talk to them. If the doctor had to talk to him, they would never communicate with the medical professionals because they might call you once every 6 months. Okay? So should you pick the smartest person necessarily? Yes or no? No. Okay. Is it wrong to not pick that person? Is it right to pick that person? And so, okay, so if you are a power of attorney, whether it's for financial or healthcare or anything else, why were you chosen? Why would someone pick you to be their power of attorney? And what should that say about you as an individual? What should it say?
You're trusted.
You're trusted.
Good moral character. Good character.
Good moral character. What else?
Good common sense.
Common sense. Can anyone think of a Wizard of Oz character? What else? Oh, think of the characters we're going to talk about. I kind of underlined them at the bottom. Are they going to have the courage to do the right thing? What if one family member says, I don't think that you should pull the plug. I don't think that you should let mom die. Or is that individual going to have the courage to tell another kid to suck it up? This is what mom wanted? Right?
Yeah.
Right? What are your duties as a power of attorney? When someone has trusted you with their life and their money,
Follow their dictates.
follow their wishes. If you disagree with them on something you know they want, which are you supposed to do?
Still follow their dictates.
What they wanted. So what is it important for you as a power of attorney to do when you are given that responsibility? What's something that comes to mind that you should do?
Wishes are.
You should know what their wishes are. What does it require you to do in order to know that?
Have communication.
Communication, a relationship. You should see them. Should you know the names of their doctors
Yes. And lawyers.
and lawyers?
And have a complete list of
You
this
should-
is what I want.
Right. Should the doctor know who you are?
Yes. What helps?
What if you move and your address changes? What should you do? You should notify the person. Does the older person who needs this extra help, are they going to necessarily remember that you moved to notify the doctor? No. So maybe you need to take the extra step, if that makes any sense. And so, I'm going to try to pull out of the movie some ideas as we talk about this. Because the folks in the Wizard of Oz, if you follow the theme, they all have something they're looking for. And one of the things that I want you to get out of this presentation is most of the answers to what are your responsibilities as a power of attorney, you can find them in all four of the main characters, Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion. They're the same thing for you in your role as a power of attorney. Okay? Because the answers are in your heart. That's Dorothy. And then we'll get to the others in a minute. But you have a duty of care. Kansas actually has a law, and it's a law. It's codified in the books. It's KSA 58656. And your duty as the power of attorney is to act in the interest of the principal, that's the person who gave you the power, to avoid conflicts of interest. You shall not commingle funds. You should exercise a degree of care that would be observed by a prudent person. You should communicate with the principal. You should follow their instructions. And you should maintain without modification their estate plan. It's not your job to tell them that the plan that they made to disinherit their youngest child, their older child, is a bad idea. Because that was their choice, not yours. And so it's not your role to substitute your judgment. And so under the law, should a financial power of attorney be listed as an owner on a bank account? As an owner on the bank account, ever?
No.
No. Why is that? Because the law says you don't do it. If your name is on there as an owner, guess what you've just done?
They have the right to
It's their money. It's commingled, right? So how do you list the person on the bank account if they're your power of attorney?
Beneficiary.
Well, they can be a POD, but you can also go to the bank and you can say, here's my financial power of attorney. This is my daughter, Sheila. We'll make that name up. And I want her listed on the account as an authorized user and to sign as POA when necessary. Give me a signature card. So is that her money?
No.
No. She's only authorized to use it. Okay? So should the power of attorney ever deposit any of their own money in the principal's account? Never. Should the financial power of attorney ever buy anything for themselves with the principal's money?
No.
No. Should the financial power of attorney ever transfer ownership of the principal's property to themselves?
No.
It's not a good idea. If that's going to happen, try to do it before you get the relationship started. You know, you might be a kid. Sometimes in a child situation that's possible, but that's not what you do. It's better to get all that worked out before, so you're not changing that plan. Should the power of attorney ever take over their health care when they have capacity?
Yes. When they have capacity.
When they have capacity? No. And so, and there's some other questions on there, but you know, you see me put on there good witch or bad witch, because there are good witches and there are bad witches, just like Glenda said, I'm a good witch. And that's what we're working toward. If you give someone, or if you are the person given the power of attorney, and you are responsible for making decisions for this individual when they're not able to do it for themselves, this is not a license for you to become this dictator to tell this person what they're going to do and what they're not going to do, and you're just a dumb old person who doesn't know what you're talking about, and you told me to, and I'm not kidding, there are people that act that way, and I have seen some pretty arrogant POAs in my office, and it's not unusual for me to tell someone like that, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait in the waiting room because I'm going to visit with this individual by themselves, and I'm going to give them a speech about how, you know, I'm going to talk to them by themselves because I can't wait to talk to them about how I don't like the way you're treating this individual. You know, because an abuser of a power of attorney, you know, they are, sometimes they get out of control and they think that they're supposed to substitute their judgment. I understand in some situations when you have a patient who might have something like Alzheimer's or dementia, and it can get very sticky and it can get very awkward and you're not sure what you're dealing with. Has anyone ever seen that kind of thing happen? Yeah, does anyone ever get worried that they might get accused of doing something? Okay. What are one of the things, when earlier we talked about duties of the power of attorney under the law, what can you do to prevent that sort of awkwardness from happening? We already said the answers earlier. What can you do? Communicate. Everybody knows who you are, right? So that when you go see the doctor and that transition occurs, I've got this photo here. See how this individual is talking to the person in the room? Okay. Never, never, ever, never, never, ever should the power of attorney, in my opinion, treat someone who has a power of attorney like they're not in the room. But there might come a point in time, especially when you're dealing with an Alzheimer's patient or someone with dementia, where the power of attorney for healthcare, they actually have a relationship with the doctor and they know the doctor. And there might come times in you're dealing with the individual where you might talk to the doctor with the person in the room, or you just, for the sake of, it's better to talk to the doctor without the principal in the room because it just can get really horrible or awkward. But if you don't have a relationship with the physician or the medical professionals that are working with this person, then it's just going to be tough. And if the family members have never seen you around because you just weren't there for the last 6 months or to a year when this individual was declining in health, they're going to be less likely to trust you, and so you might get questioned more. And worst of all, when you have to do what the principal, would have done. If you've never communicated with them and you don't really know them, how on earth can you do what you thought that person would have done? So probably one of the most important things that you can do as a power of attorney is get to know the person. Get to know the other family members. Get to know the medical professionals. Know the doctor's name so that when your address or phone number changes, you're letting the doctor know. And so, and the same is true with financial situations. The financial power of attorney, it's okay to go to the bank with them, but you're not there to conduct the business. You're there to let the other person conduct the business, and you're only going to step in when it's appropriate. But with financial stuff, I don't know that it's as important as the medical stuff for the people at the bank to know who you are. But they should probably see your face at least once, and you should sign, maybe it's when you do the signature card to get your name on there as a user, not owner, right? And then avoid self-dealing. Believe it or not, abuse of powers of attorney and abuse of the elderly and the disabled are most often committed by family members. No one wakes up and says, I think I'm going to steal my mom's money today or my dad's money today. Most of the time, abuse does not occur in nursing homes. It actually occurs by a family member. You do need to understand, in Kansas, there is the possibility that you can be criminally charged in the event you abuse a power of attorney. You can also have civil liability and be sued. It's a shame to admit, but I have actually conducted lawsuits against a power of attorney who took a home equity loan against her mother's house, got 30 grand, and then wired it into her account and made a down payment on her house. Now that sort of thing is a big fat no-no. And yes, someone from the Attorney General's office got to interview them. They got to do an investigation. Adult Protective Services gets involved. And then just like you have child abuse, you have elder abuse and adult abuse, and then you can go to jail for up to 40 years under this law that was enacted in 2014 when Derek Schmidt was the Attorney General. And so do not abuse your power of attorney. And so just to reiterate, a power of attorney shall not take the personal property or the financial resources of the person for their benefit. You use or manage the personal property or financial resources of the elder person. You should not use undue influence, coercion, harassment, duress, deception, false representation, false pretense. You don't take things from them without adequate consideration. It can start off as easy as, let me do you a favor, and they give you a little money and then they buy you lunch, and then the next thing you know, the power of attorney is all of a sudden, without even realizing it, buying their own groceries with the individual's money that they're supposed to take care of. But it doesn't happen like that. It's just kind of a slow progression. And so you need to make sure that you remember, as a power of attorney, that you avoid conflicts of interest and that you don't get yourself in a situation where you are self-dealing, where you're doing things for yourself with another individual's resources. Also, under Kansas law, there is the possibility that you could neglect your duties as the power of attorney if you are not adequately carrying out your responsibilities as a power of attorney. Like, for example, let's say that you're their power of attorney for health care, and their health is declining, and you're so not in touch and not communicating that the individual gets sick. Just like you have child neglect, it's very possible, I have not seen the criminal charge yet, but it'll happen eventually, just hope it's no one in the room. It is very possible that a prosecutor could charge you with the crime of omission. If you don't manage someone's stuff appropriately and it causes them damage or problems, there's a possibility that you could be criminally charged. And so this is a very big responsibility, okay? This is not about who is the most powerful kid in the room, you know, this kid's better than that kid. I oftentimes see family members who are children pulling the elderly person all different directions of, well, why didn't you name me as the power of attorney? Like, I'm smarter than he is, like, you should name, you know. And then kids don't respect each other, and then it can make a big mess for the person who's trying to name someone. You know, don't be afraid when you're trying to decide who to pick as your power of attorney. And you should keep in mind, if you are the power of attorney, that this is a responsibility. It is not a crown of you're the best, okay? This is a big deal. It's a burden. Keep in mind, if you do not maintain your duties appropriately as the power of attorney, that the principal retains the right to revoke it and take it away from you. And I have had occasion, you know, as a lawyer, where I have seen the power of attorney abuse it in every way. Everything from taking mom's money and making the down payment on their own house to putting mom in a nursing home when she didn't belong there. And she didn't want to go there, and tricking her and, you know, almost euthanized her animals because they just were sick and tired of helping mom get somewhere, when what they should have done is just said, Mom, maybe I'm not the best person to handle this because it's just a little bit too annoying, and maybe we should name someone else because I think that someone else would do a better job. And as a power of attorney, it really is okay for you to be honest with yourself and honest with the person that's given you that responsibility. And if you're not going to follow through and you're not going to do it, it's probably better that you make that clear at the beginning. Because one of the things that the principal is, when they name the power of attorney, that I often see people don't do, they secretly name the one kid to be the POA, but they never tell them. Right? How many people have legal documents where they name a kid as a power of attorney and the kid doesn't even know? Right? But if you've been designated as the power of attorney and you think to yourself, I know you think I'm that responsible, but maybe you should pick somebody else. Because you need to communicate with them and they need to communicate with you. And if you have been named as the power of attorney and you're thinking to yourself, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to follow through because I might screw this up. And if you do screw it up royally, then it can be revoked. And so kind of want to avoid that. But if things don't go right, they'll revoke it. Some people don't, you don't want to be a failure and a loser, but you don't have to be. But the principal always retains the right to revoke. If you're curious about how to revoke one, because maybe you've thought about doing that or you've done it in the past or not sure how to do it, we can give you a form for that or we can help you with it. But you revoke it the same way you made it. It's a simple one-pager and it says, I made a power of attorney on this day and I'm revoking it. And just like when you gave the power of attorney, you have to notify everyone in the world that you gave it to that this person is now revoked. So you have to tell the bank, I revoked it. You have to tell the person that you gave it to, I revoked it. You have to tell the doctor, I revoked it. And sometimes that can be a challenge. And so, does anyone have any comments? Because I've kind of gone a little. Actually, I'm doing a lot better job than I thought I would because I usually run out of time. Comment in the back.
Sir, I gotta ask you a question.
Sure.
If you have 2 children and you want to go, can you put both of your kids' names on the power of attorney? And they will be the only 2 that can get in and check everything. Just them 2, but it cannot be in-laws or son-in-laws or daughter-in-laws. They have no business in that. Is that right?
Okay. As the person making the power of attorney and giving the authority to the power of attorney, you can name anybody that you want. Okay? Well, you can have 1. You can have 2. You can have 3. Okay. So I'm gonna give you because I want to go back to one of the principles of what I talked about at the very beginning. The power of attorney, whether it's financial or health care, if there's a situation where there's financial or health related, when it comes time for them to make a decision about what to do or what not to do, are they supposed to make the decision that they want to make, or are they supposed to make the decision that you would have made? Which one is it? The one that you would have made, right? And so sometimes I see individuals who are going to make a power of attorney. Okay, I'm going to go back to I'm going to use the lion as an example here in a minute when we talk about that. When you are acting as the power of attorney for someone, you're supposed to do what they would have done. You're supposed to know them well enough. It is not a democracy. Okay? You don't say, I got 3 kids, I'll name all 3, they can vote on it. No, that's not the way it works. You trust this individual to make the decision that you would have made, and that individual is going to make the choice. And you know what the other 2 are going to do? They're going to respect the choice that they made, and they're going to accept it, even if they disagree with it. And if you got 2 people doing it, is it possible they might disagree? Yes, sure. Right? Right? And so if you're the power of attorney for financial or health care, and you are entrusted with making a choice that your dad would have made, and you're concerned that other members of the family might question you or attack you about it, right? You better know the individual well. If it's investment, know their investments. Know what they were interested in. If it's about health care, know what they would have wanted or not wanted. What happens if the car flips over when you're driving it and you're going to lose use of your legs and they're going to have to double amputee, and we could just let that be your ticket out of there and refuse all health care and let you die? Or are we just going to let you wake up and you'll have a good quality of life but no legs? Would dad want the surgery or not? Some people would and some people wouldn't. But they need to know you to make the choice you would have made. Because see, one kid, I can remember when my father died, this happened. Because he never put anything in writing, no one ever knew anything. And my poor mother had to have basically 2 funerals. One with a casket fully embalmed and all the 9 yards. Because one kid said, I really want to see my dad at the funeral parlor. And then my mom's like, I don't want to have to do that. We're just going to cremate and put him in the urn. I don't want to see my husband dead in the casket. And then the other kid, and then of course she ended up doing both things to make everyone happy. And it was just miserable. Don't do that to people. Make some choices and communicate them. And if your kids disagree, whoever you name, they have to respect the other one. So going to the lion, what do they need? Courage, right? They need brains, they need common sense, they need a heart. They need to protect the individual. In the back, you had a comment?
I had a question. Like, if you do have 2 power of attorneys, wouldn't it be wise to have, maybe this one would be the one that makes the decision, and if that person couldn't be there, then the other person? Because like you said, they both might not agree.
It's always smart to have a backup. But don't just do something because you think it's a good idea. You need to really think about it if you're naming a power of attorney. And if you're the one that's been given the power to do that, to make choices, you really need to feel the weight of that responsibility. Because it's going to be tough when your younger sibling is telling you that you're not making the right choice. Right? You have more thought on that in the back? Yes.
Yeah, but if let's say you get your power of attorney, and let's say you just have two children, okay? And I know people have told me this, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm just going to simply check your bank account. If anything has to be done with a bank account or a savings account, they both have to be there or it don't get open. Am I right or wrong?
If you want to organize it that way, you can. But I would never say to an individual, that's the best way to do it. Because, you know, if you've got to have two or, just go to Washington, D.C. for goodness sakes. The more cooks you get in the kitchen, the more difficult it is to get things done. Right? And you're supposed to be trusting an individual to do things for you, and you cannot do it yourself. And so I think a lot of times individuals get really frustrated with that process, and they just don't do anything because they're more worried about, oh my gosh, my oldest is going to feel dissed when I don't name him as the power of attorney. Because guess what? It is not about that kid. It's about you and your choices and your decisions and what you want and what you don't want. If you're the power of attorney, whether it's for healthcare or financial, this is not about you at all. It's about the individual that you have a responsibility for, if that's clear. And so,
If you have a power of attorney and he just not working out at all, and you get rid of him and get someone else, do you have to tell him that he's not the one anymore?
yes. When you revoke the power of attorney, you have to notify that individual and say to them, you're not the boss anymore. Like, I woke up from that surgery and I was like, you're kidding me, right? Like, I don't have any legs. I wanted to die. And I have all my marbles now, but that was no, you didn't hear what I said, dude. No, I need to find someone else who's got the courage to do what I really wanted you to do, and you didn't do it.
So it's almost a law, you have to tell them, you're saying.
Well, if you secretly name someone else, you don't want to have two people doing something. So yes, you have to notify them. You should notify anyone in the world who ever has relied on that power of attorney.
Okay, I see. But I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. The lawyer makes a person a power of attorney, and there's a date on it. Okay, a year or two later, they change it to someone else, and of course, he would have a newer date.
Correct. That's the one that controls.
Right. Does he have to tell that guy?
Who's he?
The one. Well, the new one. Does he have to, or does the lawyer have to tell the old one?
The one that revoked the first one? Yes.
Okay.
And he's not referring to the lawyer, and he is not referring to the new power of attorney. He is referring to the person who made a new one needs to tell the old one, you're fired.
Well, that would be the lawyer would have to send.
No, the lawyer doesn't have to tell him. The person who's firing the power of attorney needs to do it. The creator of the new one has to do it. Yes, you're fired. Maybe we got fired. You're fired. Okay, that'd be a good one. Because you could get fired as a power of attorney. Like, we're going to blow you up. Like, nope, fail. Boom. You're not doing what I want you to do. Like, I noticed that you paid your electric bill with my checking account. Nope. You're revoked. I'm going to get someone else. Right? And so you have to notify them. Okay? So we're going to try to pull in the characters. I want to watch a video clip. If you remember in The Wizard of Oz, they move through and all the different characters are looking for, an answer to their questions. And if you remember, they go to the wizard to get the answer, and the wizard is not willing to give them any answers. And the wizard says, I'm not going to help you unless you bring me what? Does anyone remember? The broom. And they're like, I don't know how to get the broom. And the witch is chasing them around. And this is one of my favorite scenes. So let's watch it.
We'll see the first three go before her.
Have to pause. I got to turn my technology back on. My speaker turned off. I'm like, you can't hear that. Is it connected? Maybe.
Snow will see the first three go before her. And her mangy little dog, too. How about a little fire, Scarecrow? You cursed brat! Look what you've done! I'm melting! Melting! Oh, what a world! What a world! Who would have thought a good little girl like
She's dead. You killed her.
I didn't mean to kill her. Really, I didn't. It's just that he was on fire.
Hail to Dorothy! The Wicked Witch is dead! Hail to Dorothy! The Wicked Witch is dead!
The broom. May we have it?
Please, and take it with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Now we can go back to the wizard and tell him the Wicked Witch is dead.
Okay. And then they go see the wizard, if you remember. And then going back to answering the question of what are you supposed to do as the power of attorney when you're their power of attorney. I'm going to draw your attention to the scarecrow. I kind of think that's funny. There's a lot of people who do awful lot of talking and they don't have any brains. So you might want to make sure that your brain is in gear when you're the power of attorney. Like, actively ask yourself the question, you know, what am I supposed to be doing? Okay? What is my role here? And you can use, like someone said at the very beginning, your common sense. If you've been given the responsibility to make decisions for someone when they can't do them themselves, then from a common sense perspective, what do you have to do? Get to know them. They have to trust you. The family has to trust you. The doctors have to know who you are. The bank has to know who you are. You know, they've got to be able to trust you with their finances, with their health care. You know, you might need to know some embarrassing things about them, and that's okay. And they have to trust you to be able to do that. If we're looking at the lion at the end of the movie, we know that he was, during the whole movie, what was he? Every time something went wrong, what did the lion do? He was a coward. He ran away. You know, you know, and so that's not the right thing to do. If you've been chosen as the power of attorney, evidently another human being on the face of the earth thinks that you have the courage to do what's right for them, that you have the courage to make the choice that they would have made even if other people in the world are going to criticize you for it. And so wear it with a badge of honor and do what you're supposed to, right? And then the next character, who's the next character? The Tin Man. Yes, the Tin Man. The person evidently thinks you have a heart. You're not going to be some cold person who's does not have a heart, and you're going to steal their stuff and keep it for yourself, right? You're supposed to protect Dorothy. You're supposed to keep her from getting hurt. You're supposed to, you know, make sure that her needs are met. And you're going to bend over backwards, which we know he needs the oil can. But anyway, you have to protect the person that you have been entrusted with their money and their life, and you're supposed to do what's right. So you have a responsibility to care. Too many powers of attorney don't care, or they lose that. And then, of course, if you're Dorothy, you know, at the end of the movie, you need to...
Now I'll never get home.
Stay with us then, Dorothy. We all love you. We don't want you to go.
Oh, that's very kind of you. But this could never be like Kansas.
Pretend Dorothy's the principal.
Stop wondering what happened to me by now. Oh, Scarecrow, what am I going to do?
Look, here's someone who can help you.
Any longer. You've always had the power to go back to Kansas.
I have.
Then why didn't you tell her before?
Because she wouldn't have believed me. She had to learn it for herself.
What have you learned, Dorothy?
Well, see Uncle Henry and Auntie Ann. And it's that if I ever go looking for my heart's desire again, I won't look any further than my own backyard. Because if it isn't there, I never really lost it to begin with. Is that right?
That's all it is.
But that's so easy. I should have thought of it for you. I should have found it in my heart.
No, she had to find it out for herself. Now those magic slippers will take you home in 2 seconds.
Oh, Toto too?
Toto too.
Oh, now?
Whenever you wish.
Oh dear, that's too wonderful to be true. Oh, it's going to be so hard to say goodbye. I love you all too. Goodbye, Tin Man. Oh, don't cry. You rust so dreadfully. Here's your oil can. Goodbye.
Now I know I've got a heart, because it's breaking.
Goodbye, Lion. You know, I know it isn't right, but I'm gonna miss the way you used to holler for help before you found your courage.
I would never have found it if it hadn't been for you.
I think I'll miss you most of all.
Are you ready now?
Yes. Say goodbye, Toto. Yes, I'm ready now.
Then close your eyes and tap your heels together 3 times. And think to yourself, there's no place like home. There's no place like home.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
And we all know what happens next.
There's no place like home.
And so, and this was kind of difficult to pull together, but if you're wondering what your duties and responsibilities are, and you want to make sure that you're fulfilling your role as a power of attorney in any capacity, just think of what Dorothy needed when she was going down the yellow brick road. What did she need? Courage, brains, a heart, and she didn't really have that for herself. She had to find it along the way, and she had to trust people to help her get to where she was going, right? And she needed protection, and she needed people to be brave for her to get her to the end. And so when you are given the responsibility as a power of attorney, you need to have those qualities and use your common sense, and you're supposed to be like those people. We know in the movie she wakes up, you know, and her Auntie Em is there, and the 3 guys who were the people were there, right? And she was rescued from the bad witch, because you don't want to be you don't want to be the bad witch, because we all know what happened to the bad witch at the beginning of the movie, right? If you remember what Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, said, you know, here's the house, and there's the Witch of the East, because there was the Wicked Witch of the West who was mean and ugly and cruel, and the one in the East was dead and the West was still alive, but Dorothy took her out with the bucket of water. Like, I still wonder, like, why was that bucket of water there in the first place? But it doesn't matter. And so, if you're a wicked witch, someone just might drop a house on you. It might be a criminal liability, it might be revocation, it could be embarrassment, it could be another family member or someone criticizing you, actually probably fairly. If you've never been around, you've never done your job, and you're going to be perceived in a way that you don't want to be, and so don't do that. And so don't be a wicked witch. Do what you're supposed to. Be like the lion and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, and get some brains, some courage, and have a heart. So That's the end. So did I finish in time? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Please, if you came late and did not sign in, be sure to sign in and complete your evaluations. They're very important for the and you can have them in. I'll stay up here, or there's somebody right there who should take whoever is back there in the yellow shirt will take your evaluations. Thank you so much.
That was a presentation by Paul Shipp, a managing attorney for Kansas Legal Services, about how to be a good power of attorney. You're listening to Salina Media Connection.